For the Department of Corrections, I'd like to recognize Senator McClendon here with us today. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And I'll turn the floor over to Commissioner Kane. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. I'd like to start out by showing you one of the things we're doing to employ people, which is most important. This is our hiring flyer that we send out, and she's going to pass one out. I see you have one. It also tells how much we pay. So that's really what I wanted you to see, the salaries and so forth. And with that said, I'll talk a little bit about the gain that we have. And what we've gained is, since we started 2000, we had 682 employees, and today we have 1,139 employees. We're 457 as our gain, which is really good as far as gain, but it's not nearly enough. So we're moving on up the ladder with that. So we've also have the prison count for today. The total count is in our prisons today 17,593 inmates. So they're different prisons. Anybody know which one where? I have that information. Any questions on that? So next, I would like to talk about a little bit about our budget as far as my end of it. That's for construction is and so forth. And we'll look at the total. We'll start and look at parchment. We spent a total of $73,980,454.31 at parchment so far. And that's renovating all the different things that we've renovated, including death row, which we have finished that. It will be occupied February the 15th. They'll move in, and it's 56 beds. And so it costs $14 million to build or to finish or to rebuild and so forth. It's pretty much a state-of-the-art death row now. It's very safe and secure. So that's ready to go. We're doing right now, spending $8 million at Walnut Grove on doors, the locking system, and $11 million at East Mississippi. These are to be in compliance with the Justice Department and requirements that they have for us to do. So we're headed there. Now, we've realized we needed more restricted housing beds, so we've rearranged the way we operate and opened a few more up and changed around the Walnut Grove addiction program and gained 250 beds for restrictive housing, but they're included in the vacant beds that we have, which vacant beds are 925. So we still have beds to go. And the other thing is we want to talk a little bit about the gangs in the prison. We're going to have a bill that Representative Curry is going to introduce that's going to be really a gang abatement bill. I did this in my previous work at Angola. I know it works because I've already done it. And so we hope to get this through and get this passed. And by that, our goal is within 3 years to not have a gang issue. Our gang population today is 1,356. And in the state facilities is 790. And so too many, too bad, but we've cut back from a little over 6,000 from when we started. So the population of them is reduced drastically. But the way you get rid of them is you create other things for people to be involved in and belong to so that everybody has a job, everybody has a purpose, everybody has something positive to do, and you don't have idle time, but you stay busy and you do productive things that you benefit from. So that's how you really do the gangs, and we have an idea for that. We have the legislation for that, which we'll talk about tomorrow in her committee. So that's how we intend to deal with them. Any questions on gangs? Derek, we're doing good. Okay. I'm going to hand over to Derek to talk about the real deal, the money we need to sustain ourselves and continue on.
Good evening, Chairman. One of the key things I got in the package for you guys today, just take a quick look at, put a little snapshot budget to you guys. One of the key things I wanted to start off with a little different this time around to give you a snapshot of where we're at today at CMCF and also community correction to back forth while we're requesting what we're requesting in those areas. As you can see, right now, our appropriation for the year for 36 million. We're already expended and encumbered 22 million with a remaining appropriation for the next 6 months for CMCF, Central Mississippi Correctional Facility, or $14 million. We're requesting $41 million for fiscal year 2026 to cover the impact that we're having right now. We're going to have to basically use our authority, the 25% threshold authority, to make up the remaining funds that we're going to need to finish out the year for Central Mississippi Facility. That is within our budget, but we're going to have to start looking at it diligently across the other facilities and say, hey, what are your needs and things that you can finish the rest of the fiscal year so we can absorb this within Central Mississippi so we don't run a deficit anyway. So those are the key things we're doing. We're requesting that, as you can see, like last year, we're fiscal year 2024, we expended $41 million at Central Mississippi. Those things that we're needing, that $5 million is cover the increased cost of the food service, increased cost of doing day-to-day business, utilities. One of the key bills, like for our bills, we pay $295,000 every quarter for water and sewer. All these contractual type things that we have to do to continue to operate within CMCF is one of the key things we're asking for within that budget, that we have to move forward where we don't limit things at other facilities that we really need to do to continue to impact all our facilities. And the other one I want to share with you is community corrections, as this is a special fund and a general fund combination. And one of the key requests we're asking for, these are the guys that work in our areas every day. Probation parole is the ones that protect us in the community. And we're requesting the major increases in theirs is their salaries. We're trying to get their salaries up. I think it's roughly $4.4 million, $2.8 million to increase their salaries to a reasonable rate that we're comparable to other people around in these states. So those are the key requests so we can boost that up. Once the staffing boosting up with the pay increase in those areas, we also see a direct correlation with our special funds driving up of collection fees as you staff up. So those things will also, as that staffing level goes up with the pay increase, this also helps us level out with a special fund where it may create a gap where we can decrease our general funds in the future. So those are key things that I want to mention first and foremost. We're also asking for more contractual services for anchor monitoring. We're trying to improve that service or giving back better technology within that, tracking inmates outside our facilities. But we'll get to the basic budget overview. Our original request was $500 million and we increased it, actually increased that to $519 million. But the key request that is a fender track. A fender track has come to the end of life. We're trying to get a better timeline on the fender track. So as we get closer and get a better dialogue on how that is, we're going to try to give you a timeline of a price breakout of when it might impact. So it might not be total 14 million. So we're going to try to give you a precise timeline because we're going to try to piggyback off other states. We was hoping a cloud-based system with ITS would be already in place. It would speed up the entire process of the RFP process. So we're going to try to pick back off other states' contracts to kind of speed up that process. That way we're going to implement a fender track a little quicker than we anticipate. Because they just says almost at the end of life, and it's one of the dear needs of the organization. Without tracking the offenders, we can't track data, we can't track anything. The other key increase is 14 points. Addition was 4.7 million for work release. We're trying to operate that work release out of our entire facility. That includes staffing, vehicles, upgrading facilities to impact that where we can offset those inmates that would be in those programs away from our day-to-day population. We cannot house those guys within the same areas of the day-to-day inmates to protect themselves, protect them from extortion and everything else. So those are key requests, additional that we're going to work with MAGCOR. That's a partnership that MAGCOR actually operates the work release program. And that funding would directly help impact them more so than us. But we want to make sure we're partnering right, have the correct funding to carry out that law of work release. One of the other key requests we're asking is $34 across the board for the regionals. That has been requested for the last couple of years. That's still on the board, $34 across the board for every inmate. I already mentioned the community correction and the CMCF. One of the other key things, as you know, our RFP process has finalized on the medical contract. It's additional $12 million this year, fiscal year 2026 budget request. That's directly based off what the market has set. And we're requesting that. And one of the key things we also ask for, as we're trying to continue to operate our facilities, we cannot fix things day to day out our general budget. So we're asking for a state support fund of about 7.8 million to continue to fix the locks throughout it. Security gates, generators. When the weather's down on the south, we've got to make sure the generators continue operating. Our restrooms and showers, as we know, those things are continuous, getting tore up by inmates, but we have a duty to continue to fix them, provide them clean care and control in those facilities. Another one is rebuilding our fleet. 1.3 million to help rebuild our fleet throughout our agencies. Community corrections, we got to have them more visual, more involved in the city. Those are two key increases that we're requesting. And one of the key things I want to point out, originally on our deficit request for this fiscal year, started out at 7.2 million. It has been decreased when amended back in December to 2.6 million. And that's direct work of our internal audit department of doing the job that we're supposed to, holding people accountable, controlling, watching the contracts. We had about 7.2 million clawbacks, and that helped decrease those costs. And that's just a general overview of a major budget request that we're requesting, Senator. And I will take any question that you may have.
So I have a couple of comments that I want to make, but I'm going to allow my chairman. You good? Okay. Let me ask for other committee members. Senator Clinton, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be clear, key specific increases at regional facilities, the $34 per inmate, how much is it now per inmate?
The law is $32.71, so that law would have to be changed to make it $34.
So you're looking for an increase of $1.29?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. I'm still learning my way around on this budget, and it's a sizable budget. So in the beginning of your presentation, you talked about some of the appropriations for Central Mississippi Correction. And you talked about the increase that that you need to have, which is, was that about $5 million? Okay.
Yes, sir.
What's that shortfall? What's that attributed to?
Like, as Mr. that is your day-to-day utilities increase. That's your food cost increase. Those are the key increases of just day-to-day operation. Originally when Delta split out, that budget decreased with Delta, and it has never rebounded since that increase. We're just trying to make that budget whole again. And like I said, those costs that we have been absorbing to get across the finish lines the last 2 years.
And you're still working to absorb those costs throughout the rest of your budgets so that you're not coming in asking for a deficit for this year.
Correct.
I want to be very clear about that.
Correct.
We're not asking for a deficit.
No, sir. I'm holding a meeting next week with those guys in other areas for a marshal that might have a surplus. Anywhere I'm going to see a surplus may have that we're going to try to create a surplus. Make sure we'll get across the finish line of the custody and care control that we need to finish the fiscal year without asking for a deficit report.
Okay. It looks like you're asking for an additional 45 million in this 26 request for salary adjustments for law enforcement officers and technical advancements, correct?
Correct, for community corrections.
Okay. So I'm going to go to page 6. You have your overall budget request of Your original request was 501,
Yes,
okay? And now you've upped that another 18,000, 18 million above your original request for these key add-ons. Okay, so it's the 45 plus the 18, correct?
the total request is above is 50 million.
So what I'm faced with is that we've got a LBR that is in here for, on the general fund side, that is a lot less than what your request is. And I'm going through this, and when you provide me these overall budget numbers, it's hard for me to translate what you've given me here into how that is going to be where you're proposing for those funds to come from on the way that we look at it through general funds or special funds or other special funds and
Well, if you-
spending authority.
So if you look in your package on the last page, I gave you a summary sheet that folds out. And it gives you the breakdown of special fund, general fund within it.
Much better. All right, give me a second. While I'm going through and digesting some of this stuff, I want to go over to your offender tracking at the 14 million. And then also I saw something about another piece of technology. It may have been early on, but how does that correlate to the monies that we've appropriated for the last couple of years and reappropriated for, if I remember correctly, for the very same purposes?
This is the first request ever for offender track.
Okay, then what were the technology, the software pieces that we were working on last year that we reappropriated?
That just was generic software that we did utilize. I think it was like 1.2 million that we did utilize upgrading software needs. It's just basic software that wasn't for community corrections.
Okay. We had several, and I'm going to go back. I'll go back and look at my notes and I'll follow back up with you on that. But I just remembered there was something very specific that we were looking at funding, that y'all were going to do a pilot program to look at it and see.
Now that's in physical, this in this year's budget you're referring to. That is, I think it was 2.4 million for community correction. We did do a pilot. He probably can speak to the behalf of the pilot. That funding there is still there. That's still on the board. We have not implemented that process because, like I said, that was supposed to be part of the ITS cloud-based thing that you can go before to pull down on the RFP process and to speed up the process of it. But no, that has not been actually incurred.
Okay, so then what's the request for the 14 million for?
$14 million is the offender track to track. Offender track tracks everything that comes in our system for offender. It does your time, it does your case plans, it tracks everything about that inmate. So that is the overall major system for the entire organization to track the offender.
Okay, so it tracks your population. It doesn't, when I say track, that's how you account for your population.
Yes.
And the tracking component of it, or what we use for early release programs but that's what we worked on last year. So the terminology was, well, I was just a little bit off on that. Okay, so this is the accounting piece, and it's an upgrade, and you're looking at using other state or contracts from other states to help you expedite that process.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions right now? Mr. Chairman, hold on.
Chairman, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few things. Your recollection was like mine. I thought we had funded some tracking system that was to be utilized for the inmates. But we'll get the details of that, so we won't rehash that one. On the regional facilities at $34 per inmate, I think right now you're paying, depends on the regional facility, because some of them maybe still have their bond in place where you got to pay the full amount. In other words, don't. Are we having any difficulties or any problems with the complaint? I know last year we heard some complaints from the regionals. I haven't heard as many this year. I think mostly they've been caught up. I hope I'm right about that, on paying them the amounts they're owed.
We were paying them based off the contract that's in place. I think some has already maxed out to the 32.71
Right.
with the additional rate. The other one I think is 30.93. I think is the bottom tier that we have for everybody else. That's
Everybody's between 30.93 and
Yes.
31.72.
Yes, sir.
32.71. So when you go to 34, that's maxing out. So there'll still be some that'll go from 30.90 to whatever that increase is. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then as it relates to the numbers I know this has been an issue for y'all. I know it's difficult to hire your employees. I mean, one of the things that we look at every year, and I know this is Senator Delano's first chance to chair on this subcommittee, but every time it's hard for y'all to get all the employees you request in your head count. Am I correct?
Correct. And so what
We've got y'all are above the minimum though on your guards, aren't you? Or SPB, you've kept up with that.
yes, sir. I think that's the numbers he mentioned earlier where we have made gains.
Sorry, I got here late. My
So-
apologies.
150, I read it out a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've gained well, but we're not where we need to be. We're about halfway there. We need about we need that 1,900 less 20. We need 1,900 correctional officers less 20%. The Justice Department would accept be about 1,700 and we're at 1,200. We were at 600, so we've gained well, and y'all have helped us and supported us well with that.
So over last year, it looks to me like our numbers on head count 32 additional, but from where you are in LBR based on the vacancies count, it looks like you're, what is that, 147 short overall, roughly. Is that about right?
Year.
Well, and you can get me this
Yeah,
information
sure.
later too. I'll give you and Senator Delano, we can all meet together and talk about this. One other thing that's important, how are we doing on the corrections, and maybe not the right term, the modifications to the locks and all the thing, and the money we put in for the ARPA funds for locks and water lines and HVAC and all those things?
So all the ARPA money, we have expended out. Those projects almost nearing final stages. The locks, the funding, the $7.5 million that was given last year has already been transferred to Bureau of Building, who's handling that project for us. I want to say Walnut Grove is online, and East Mississippi is working up next.
Walnut Grove's finished
It's online. It's not finished. It's
what do you mean online? What does that mean?
the process has started working towards fixing them. Like you go through the entire process.
Okay.
So
So we're making, how much longer will it be before that's completed?
I will get you that information. I will get with our maintenance guy, Barney Poole,
And get with Senator Delano too, get the subcommittee chair to get that information. I think that's it for now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, you're just wanting to make sure that that money is going to be expended and reimbursed before the end of the fiscal year.
So that funding is already gone out of our budget, is at Bureau of Building. At that point, they handle the project from beginning to finish. So that $7.5 million has already been transferred to Bureau of Buildings. They initiate the project, they contract out the project, they see that project complete to finish. So that we would not need that reappropriated.
Okay, I see. All right. Senator McCon.
So just a few follow-up questions on some of this. And I'm still a little murky on your additional increase on critical initiatives. Is there a list somewhere in this packet on the critical initiatives you're talking about?
I can provide you that list on the state support. Yes, sir.
And because you've upped your request by that 18 million, so I'd like to know what we're talking.
On the 18 million on the increase, that's 14 million strictly for offender track. The system itself is going to cost roughly.
14 of that's gone.
That's basically on the low end that we're shooting for. Hopefully with technology, as you know, it get cheaper as it go a little bit further. So we're hoping that number stays based at 14 million. But as the market is going to set the final number when we go through the process. Another one is 4.7 million to help carry out the work release law. that we have to modify buildings, put in kitchens and everything else to keep those inmates. Like I said, we have to keep those inmates. When we operate this behind our walls, we have to keep those inmates separate from the day-to-day population. That's for contraband and the safety of themselves and break, because they will have money in their savings account. They have access to funding. So we have to outfit a system, a place for them to operate out where we don't have to commingle those for the safety of just the population itself.
Okay. My last question, and I'll tender the mic here. In some of our stuff, we're getting these SPB forms. Is this basically what everything that's going to be on the SPB form that would have come in? So this list of salaries is the only progressions you're doing?
Yes, sir. And also, there's other progression that we also work in, because we still got to, within the overall budget, we still have slight increases to employment retention. That is in there part of our overall request. So yes, we do have some built
There's
in.
more progression than just these positions right here?
Oh, you actually, that is a major increase there. That's two.
I
So the other
understand.
ones would be like 200,000, 300,000, just what we set within our
Well,
house.
that matters. So do you have your SPB sheet with your progressions
Yes.
listed?
Yes.
Can I get that?
We,
Okay, because I think it's very important that we look at these positions and make sure, because what it looks like to me is you're showing me all the snapshot of the people that are on the bottom end of it. I want to know who else is getting the positions. And I want to know if we're funding this kind of money out there and you've asked for $18 million increase above the original request, I want to know what we're doing.
I totally understand.
It's just a fair statement. I want to see what we're doing.
Yes, sir.
All right, and along those lines, I've got a couple of other questions as well. So you had your budget request, your original budget request did not include the offender tracking. Why was that not included?
One of the key reasons we don't want to, we went out, the number is low because we don't want to set the market to go out and say, hey, this offender track in the budget is going to cost 21 million. It's kind of like same thing with the medical. You really want, do you want to put it in or not put it in? We want to go ahead and put everybody on notice. I would rather have that conversation amongst us, because we don't want to set a market. Say, for instance, we put out $21 million, then somebody's going to come in and say, give me 22 million. We want to let the actual process itself set the market for what the offender track is going to cost. We don't really know what it's truly going to cost until the actual RFP process is complete.
Okay, but one of the purposes of using another state contract is so that you can contain that cost and know what that cost is prior to coming into our appropriations.
They just allow us to piggyback to speed up the process.
I agree.
It don't allow us to set in the price.
Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that, but you should have a pretty narrow band of where you think that's going to land based on what they've done in what's been required in other states.
Yes.
But we'll work on that. Here's the bigger issue. Bigger issue is that there was a lot of attention given to the medical contract last year. There was a lot of my constituents in the Senate as well as in the House that were extremely concerned about the cost overruns and the lack of services that were provided and rendered that ended up in the DOJ reports. I have not heard anything in your presentation that addresses those issues other than the additional costs that are going to be associated with that. How are we doing with the DOJ issues, and what actions have been taken since this new contract has been done to prevent that? And how are you going to control those costs of medical so that we're not coming back in here asking for a deficit next year?
So one of the key things, this contract has to have a compliance portion that we're working on right now. We're meeting on that on Friday with the lawyers that has been working on the entire contract. So on this contract, we have not worked on the hands and hands with the contract. I worked on the financial management of it, but we are working on a compliance portion of oversight, whether that in-house, out-house, how that's going to look. That is imperative in this contract, as you say, to hold accountability, not just for the cost of it, for the day-to-day care of the inmates. So we're looking at that compliance portion of the day-to-day taking care of the inmates, not just the cost of it.
Understand, but that was also a critical component of the previous contract, and it didn't, and we kept getting cost increases that were way out of hand. At the same time, they were not performing. So I'm not speaking for the chairman, but as a subcommittee chair, and I know in conversations with other people that are very passionate about helping our correction system. We want this fixed, and we want people held accountable when they do not perform under the contract as they're supposed to. And we don't want them coming back and throwing a bunch of dollars or requests for dollars back at us when they have not been the ones to perform.
100% agree.
And we're focusing big time on mental health. And that's a major problem we have in all our prisons, but we're supposed to have 2,700 beds for some sort of mental health and to work with inmates. But also, he mentions that we really have not gotten yet with everything, the compliance component, to be sure that we hold them accountable. Because believe me, we get the phone call and if we don't do good medicine, then we're gonna have death, we're gonna have other problems, and we're gonna have inmates because, it's upset more. So we want the medical to be right and better than it was, and it is gonna be. And so that's gonna start happening Friday when we start working out the compliance so that we know and assure that they're gonna be seeing the inmates they need to see. Don't wait. And we're working with the medical center as well. And so it's all happening. It's just in the process right now for the new contract.
When do you expect the contract to be signed?
It's signed.
Okay, so then on the compliance side, and that's
Yeah,
what you're working through right now?
Yeah, they have 6 months to get it all worked out. It's how we're gonna monitor, who's gonna monitor it, who's gonna ensure that they do it, that they do all the process. And so that's what's happening now in this period right here. So it's all coming together as to how it's gonna work. So that's the 6 months to get it to go.
As we work through this process, I'd expect for y'all to provide us with additional information on how that is going to be moving forward to prevent the increases that we've seen over the past couple of years. And this is the same vendor, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And one of the key things, that contract is set for the next 3 years. I can
At a
probably,
fixed price?
yes, a fixed price.
All right. So then go back to the DOJ. Where are we with DOJ compliance? And have those issues been cleared?
Yeah, we feel like that we really have moved along with hiring the people we have. Our prisons are safer. We had 2 escapes that were not good. But as far as being safe, we think we're better off. The gang population is decreased, as I mentioned earlier before some of you got here. We're down to about 800 and something gang people. Well, 1,300 altogether if you count all the jails. And we were at 6,000. So that's going away. We're going to have a bill introduced with in the House that's going to be gang abatement bill. I need to take one more step. And I think in 3 years we'd be gang free. And that's what I thought when we came here. I've done this before at Angola. I know this worked. And so I know I can get rid of the gangs basically because you change their economy like we did with the cigarettes. We started smoking, so we killed the economy and they lost all their money they were making from cigarettes. We can take the rest of their money from them by reprogramming ourselves with organizations and so forth, where inmates are involved in jobs, inmates are involved in other things and not sitting idle and being vulnerable to the gangs. Then we use Walnut Grove because it now has a little over 400 inmates there, but we opened up 250 more restrictive housing beds. So that means we can lock more people up that are causing violence and causing us the blues. And so that's all going to work in our favor to knock them off. And so that's why the 250 beds are there. The ones who are predators are going to live in cells. The ones who are not predators can have jobs, make money, and do well. The predators will slowly migrate back over because they'll get tired of living in the cells.
So Commissioner, I just want to bring it back a little bit. I'm not even on Corrections Committee, but I know they're going to have a lot more questions of you in regards to that. I'm thinking of it solely from the appropriations side.
Money, okay.
And if DOJ is giving you a list of things that must be corrected, I just want to know today if you foresee anything that is coming down the tracks as a liability for the state that we may have to look at. And I just want to know if you're aware of that today.
No, sir. We were critical on generators. Generators are quite expensive. Generators have to work and come on when the power goes off. That was not happening. Generators are in the budget. They're there at some point, but we also were critical on the locks. We had doors that actually would not lock. They could jimmy the locks and get out. Those are the doors that are being fixed, 7.5 million at Walnut Grove to finish that. That project is happening today. And the other money is over there for East Mississippi for the How many million is that one, Derek?
Both of them.
It was 15 million for
It
both.
was
wasn't
7.5 million for
So
both.
all the rest of the things that
It's-
need
it's
to be
being
done
done.
are the projects that you have on your CapEx.
Yes, sir.
it? And our kitchens, everything is working well. We feel like we're pretty much in compliance. If we can get in compliance with staffing, we should be smooth sailing.
Okay.
Our goal is that they don't get us, and we're not gonna fall for that. We're gonna fix the prisons. And that's why Jay-Z walked away from his suit at Parchment, because Parchment is fixed. And there's interest in Parchments, coming from some good things happening. So we're doing good there. So Parchment is, you ought to go see it. It's working well, and we're not having much problem with it at all. It's good. So our prisons are being in good shape.
Okay, so as of right now, I don't have any more questions. I'm going to yield in just one second to any other follow-up questions. But the other statement or question that I would have of you is, with the new administration in DC, are you expecting any significant changes on either federal prisoners or anything that would affect our prison systems with just some of the discussions that have been had over the last couple of months?
No, sir, I'm gonna go ahead and say it, but I talked to Senator Hyde Smith this morning. She called me, and she said that they were interested in seeing Parchment because to get ideas for how to do other places and so forth. And so because they hear and they know where we are. So these are good things coming from the administration, not negative things. So I think we're in really good shape. I think we're in good shape with DOJ because our lawyers are working well. We have a good team. The governor's done a good job with that. And so we're in compliance. We're trying to be in compliance with everything they want.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, you have anything? Any other members? You have Chairman Sparks? Okay. Any other questions? You have anything else? Like I said, Derek, this is going to take a lot for me to digest, and I'll go through it, and but you and I will be in touch throughout this process.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane, thank you very much. Thank you. Hey, Derek. Derek, I know we've closed out, but I think we're still live. I want to commend you and your staff and commissioner on the clawbacks that you received or that you got back out of was it on the medical side? And what?
In private.
And on the private side, but y'all clawed back close to 6 million or 6.5 million, that you're now reporting that back to us. We do appreciate that you are providing that information to us and would like for you to continue. Of course, we'll have that included in the bill, but thank you for bringing that back to us.
Yes, and I have to give all the due diligence to my staff and my internal audit department who built these frameworks. And like I said, one of the key things, like you said, was the medical. The compliance portion is going to be key to the entire thing, how you build that framework. Without the framework, we're going to be going backwards. And that's one of the key things. We want to make sure the state of Mississippi is whole.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And demand it.